Hi folks, Canadian Prepper here. So today on the channel, I got to talk about how we screwed up in our last video. The community called us out on it. I'm going to tell you what we're going to try to do to rectify the problem moving forward in the future. And I also want to send some words of caution with respect to what types of survival and emergency food that you should actually be stockpiling. So let's get to it. Okay guys, I made a video yesterday called How to Make Your Own Personal MRE. On this channel, I show off a lot of fancy gadgets, a lot of expensive appliances like my Harvest Right freeze dryer. Some of you guys know that is my staple method of food preservation. Freeze drying for me personally is the most superior and technologically advanced method of preserving food for long periods of time. The problem with devices like that is that they cost an arm and a leg and not everybody can afford them. So I'm always looking for budget solutions on here to help people stockpile food, because I know that there's a lot of people who are struggling financially out there, and I know how it is to struggle financially, which is when I started my preparedness endeavors, my go-to was rice and beans in Mylar bags in buckets. It's the absolute cheapest, best way, the most affordable way. Do not be fooled by all of the emergency food bucket crap out there. I made a video earlier in the year exposing these companies who sell these food buckets with 30-day food supplies that are absolutely appalling. And for the price that you're paying, you can get a considerable amount of more food, which is actually going to taste better and probably even preserve longer. So my word of caution is, if you're going to buy freeze-dried, buy the quality stuff, because at least you're going to eat it. A lot of those companies are banking on the fact that you're probably never going to eat it. You're going to store it in a closet until the apocalypse comes, if the apocalypse comes. Now, taking responsibility for the video I made yesterday, I provided people with insufficient information, okay, which could potentially, there's a smaller chance, but for some people, they felt the need to really dramatically highlight this fact, and I appreciate it because it brought some more information to light for me that's going to allow me to improve in my preparedness methods in the future. Now, I haven't gone the route of canning food yet because it's time consuming and there's a whole process to it and there's a whole art form to it, which I greatly respect. With that, there's also something called retort canning, which uses flexible packages, just kind of like the ones we showed in that video yesterday, only they're about 7 mil. So they're much thicker packages, so they can withstand the rigors of pressure canning. Part of the reason why I structured that video in the way I did is because I wanted it to be achievable for the average person, okay? I wanted the average person to be able to make an actual legitimate MRE, because as much as I don't stockpile MREs, I still do advise people to have at least a couple dozen MREs on hand, because namely, they are a standalone food product. You don't need to add water to them. Everything you need is contained within the bag. They're designed to be used by troops out in the field. So you have everything you need, incredibly versatile, a lot of variety within the bag. So MREs do serve a function, but they don't last that long. They don't really taste that good compared to freeze-dried food, and numerous other things. We've already broken down this down in a video that we did, freeze-dried food versus MREs, that you can go and check out if you're interested. A lot of people had left the critical feedback that the process that I was using to boil the Mylar bag, you have to boil it for about 45 minutes just to be sure to get rid of anything, they say. But apparently even that won't kill botulism. And, you know, last thing I want is for somebody to do what I say and then end up getting sick as a result of it. Now, I did a little digging with respect to the statistics of botulism, and this is not trying to minimize it, but it's going to be my only pushback for this whole thing, is that there's about 25 cases of foodborne botulism in the United States every year, and about 0.25 of those ends in death. So for every 4 years, somebody dies of foodborne botulism within the United States. Now, that is because we've evolved our canning methods. And the USDA and the CDC, the government, they attribute a lot of the foodborne illness that still arises to improper canning methods, not exclusively by independent homesteaders and stuff like that, but that is the light they try to cast on it. So for me, my only skepticism with all of this is that, prior to modern canning methods using pressure canners, people canned food, okay? And people were able to preserve food. And there is, as much as you guys are 100% correct, which is why we are going to redo that video in the proper way. We're going to get all the appropriate equipment that a lot of people can't afford, including the retort sealer and the canning apparatus, the pressure canner. We're going to do it all, and we're going to learn, and we're going to hopefully educate our audience and make up for that last video. However, my only pushback with respect to some of the very dramatic comments that I received, and maybe it was just how I'm reading them. And like I say, I appreciate those comments, guys. Don't get it twisted. I actually do. The only pushback would be is I think that sometimes we do live in a germaphobic society, and there is a tendency to sometimes exaggerate, as we probably perhaps have seen in certain cases in the last couple of years, the threat levels of certain things. It's just like when I've posted videos of me drinking out of creeks in the mountains where it's fresh glacier water that flows down from the mountains. And people say, oh, you shouldn't drink that because some animal might have defecated it up the way. And it's like, if you can't drink glacier-fed, fast-moving water, then you can't drink any natural water source on Earth, and human beings would not have evolved for millions of years or hundreds of thousands of years without water filtration. So all I'm saying is that indeed, foodborne illness, waterborne illness were huge killers back in the day. I don't know the exact proportions. I'm sure people's bodies adapted to certain things. And I'm sure right now we've evolved with technology to be so sensitive to all these things that the slightest breeze of bacteria would push us over. But I will say that I do think that some of the threats might be overblown. Now, just hear me out on this, okay? It would be very convenient if you wanted to dissuade people from being self-reliant, that you made nature seem a lot scarier than it was. You would want people to fear every little thing. Oh, you drop that on the floor, don't eat that. The 3-second rule or 30-second, whatever the hell it is. We've become very hypersensitive and we exaggerate sometimes the threat levels of these things, which is not to say it can't happen. And from a legal disclaimer perspective, of course, we need to be making sure that we're giving accurate information out on this channel. I still think the threat level with what we demonstrated is low. However, food preservation is one of those things where you need to be very specific, and we absolutely were not specific enough. We didn't talk about how long you need to boil things. We didn't talk about the acidity of various foods. We didn't talk enough about the absence of creating an oxygen-free environment, food storage temperatures thereafter. So we got to clean up our act, and we are going to make it up to you. I promise we are going to redo that video properly, hopefully even bring in an expert, or I'm just going to go to university for a few weeks and make sure I dial it all in to make a video which is going to inform and educate people from start to finish on how you can actually make your own MREs. Now, it's going to be more expensive because you're going to need a canning system and possibly a retort sealing system if you really, really want to do it. It's unfortunate we live in a day and age where you almost have to teach people in that way, because if you teach them in another way where they're potentially doing harm to themselves, even though the risk might be very, very low, then you still can't do that. So you know what, you guys, you came out, you educated me. I greatly appreciate the feedback, and I just hope that we can make up for it in the future moving forward. And I must reiterate this because I see people falling into this trap all the time. But the trap that a lot of people fall into is a lot of these companies that are manufacturing this very, very low-grade freeze-dried food that they know nobody is going to eat, they are having a heyday right now because they know a lot of people have entered the prepping market who have zero idea about the food quality that is out there. We've done a video on, expiration dates, for instance, and how those are widely overblown, and how a lot of food and even medicine, and this is based on military research and on research done with actual food products, that you can use medicine and food in some cases. I'm not going to get too specific here. I'm just saying in some cases, long after the expiration dates. And this is an example of how I think that sometimes these things are a little overblown and rooted in our germophobic culture. But these companies are having a heyday selling people this garbage. If you see this stuff, do not buy it. Do not buy things like those oatmeals that basically just take the entree portion of an MRE, which barely has any calories in it, because the majority of the calories in the MRE are in the filler, okay? They're in the nuts or the crackers or the peanut butter or the other stuff that is actually probably going to go bad much faster than the canned meat, the retort packaged meat entree is going to go bad. So a lot of it's just filler. So those oatmeals, they've had this genius idea where they've just taken the meat entree out. It's 170 calories. They put it in some fancy packaging and they sell it for $10 to $15. $10 to $15 for 200 calories. Do you know how much money you'd have to spend every day just to subsist? You're talking $200 a day if you're trying to stockpile that stuff. Maybe if you're cutting calories and you're on a diet, it's not a bad idea. I'm not saying it tastes bad, but that's just one example. You really got to look at calories, taste, nutrition, life expectancy, all those things. And for me, there's a handful of companies that check all those boxes. They're companies that we sell at CanadianPreparedness.com. We do sell XMREs, which are a higher quality MRE as far as MREs go. But that's about all I'll say about that, guys. So again, I apologize greatly for making that mistake in that video. We're going to make it up to you guys. And if anything, we're going to bring on an expert in the field onto the channel. Next year, we're taking things up another notch once again. Next year is going to be the year that everything comes together on this channel. Come springtime, we're going to be putting out twice the amount of information. The quality is going to be much better. We're going to have more guests on the show. It's just going to be, it's going to be awesome, guys. So, so long as the market doesn't tank too hard like it's kind of tanking now, and so long as this whole situation doesn't get out of control and we wind up in a civil war or a world war, whatever, we're going to be bringing good things to you guys. But, you know, all festivities aside and all embrace of the now and your family and your friends and in just enjoying all the good times, we need to remember that at any point in the day, things can just start. The bad news can start. So always be prepared. The strong survive, the prepared thrive. Thanks for watching, guys. Canadian Prepper out.
The best way to support this channel is to support yourself by gearing up at CanadianPreparedness.com, where you'll find high-quality survival gear at the best prices, no junk, and no gimmicks. Use discount code PREPPINGGEAR for 10% off. Don't forget, the strong survive, but the prepared thrive. Stay safe. The best way